Hello and good evening. It's so nice to have you with us, and welcome to this Passion for Evangelism event. We tonight are looking at the topic of what it looks like to walk side by side with people, offering gospel hope in difficult times. Passion for Evangelism is all about encouraging women in sharing the good news of Jesus. And so we're really excited that all of you are watching here with us.
Yes, so this evening we have a panel of four different ladies from different backgrounds, and they're going to be sharing with us just briefly their experiences of how they've found comfort through Jesus and being able to share that with others as they've walked alongside them. So there is a chance to ask questions. You might want to direct a question to a particular speaker this evening. And whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, type those in. And at the end of the evening, so around about 8 o'clock, we're going to have about 25 minutes of Q&A time. So we'll collate all your questions and disperse them.
Yeah, brilliant. So we're going to get started. We're going to invite our first speaker up with us. That is Swazi. Great to see you, Swazi. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. If you'd like to just explain a little bit about yourself, and then I'll let you get on and speak.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me. Hello to everyone at home. My name is Swazi. I'm a radio presenter over at KISS. I know it's like day whatever in lockdown, isn't it? You know, we're online still. My name is Swaz. I am a radio presenter over at KISS. I help to voice BBC Sounds. And I'm a Christian. I go to Stockwell Baptist Church in Stockwell, London.
Brill, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Claire. Hi guys, my name is Swazi, and I suppose I just wanted to share a little bit of what life has looked like since last year when all events stopped, all of my radio stopped. I'm now a bedroom DJ, but still doing stuff from home. But I think really life took off last year, April 2020, when I was walking with a really, really close friend whose dad sadly came down with COVID very unexpectedly. And we just started walking together, literally every morning at 9 a.m. you'd call and be like, right, are you ready to jump into the word? And you'd be like, yeah, okay. But it was that reminder every morning to get stuck in. And so for the first 6 weeks or so, whilst her dad was still in hospital, the Lord really sustained us. You know, every morning we jump in, start a devotional that was just through the Bible app. It wasn't even anything fancy, and pray each morning. Ask, what did you want prayer for? How can I help? How can I support? And so journeying through that week on week, day by day, really built up not just the friendship side of things, but spiritually, you know, there was a real weight to this conversation. And then midway through April, around Easter time, I said to my friend, you know what, I've really got this urge to start a Bible study, but I don't really know what the coolest way is to invite people on WhatsApp. She was like, just say it, Swaz. Just say it's a Bible study. Say that you want to talk about Jesus in a pandemic and go for it. So I thought, all right then, put my street cred aside, and I just hit up a couple friends who normally we'd be in the dance together, we would be at work together. These are people who may never have stepped foot in a church, may have never have gone to church, or some have and had a Christian background, but never really took the faith serious enough. So here's me on WhatsApp now saying, oh, sorry guys for another WhatsApp chat, but would you like to jump into a Monday Bible study, 7:30 p.m. We're going to kick off with an Easter series, given that it's Easter time. Every one of those friends said, yes, I would really love this. I was like, oh, right, I actually need to put a Bible study together. Like, I need to prep. So then the following Monday, we started the Bible study, and God has been good. This time last year, there was no Bible study. And a year on from now, we finished the Easter series. We finished another series looking at who followed Jesus. And just 2 weeks ago, we finished the whole book of Luke. And we've just started the book of Acts. And so God has added to us. And I just wanted to share a quick testimony because sadly, those 6 weeks came to a head with me and my friend, and she sadly lost her dad. But I really do believe it was the Bible study, it was the devotionals in the morning that kept us, it kept our friendship, it kept our trust in the Lord to say, actually, we believe in the one who died and rose again, and therefore we have hope. We have a hope that goes beyond the grave. And then fast forward to maybe 3 weeks ago, I'm hosting this Bible study that did not exist last year, and I'm hosting it, and we've got to Luke Luke 24, we're talking about Jesus is risen. And why is it on that same Monday, someone came on to say, last week, I lost my stepmom. And the last Sunday before that, I was grieving my dad, who I lost, I think, 4 years ago. My friend lost her dad. And so within the group, within the small number of us, a lot of us were grieving. A lot of us were walking with other people side by side. And it just so happened that the Lord picked out that day where we were reading together, Jesus is risen. We were reading Luke 24 of the good news about the gospel. And so I just wanted to share like some of the practical ways in which we can all plug in, we can all take the plunge. So one of them might just be start your own Bible study. I have not gone to the School of Theology. I am not a Bible teacher. I'm a radio presenter. And so where I not always feel equipped or the most suited for the job, what I do know is you can be vulnerable about life. You can ask some really hard questions and you can draw people in who you may not necessarily think would say yes. And so what surprised me was every one of those guys who I invited did say yes. And I'm really glad for that. And something else I just wanted to share, because I'm in radio, right? Radio and the gospel, they don't always come as best friends. They don't always go hand in hand. But what I have found is that the courage that has come from hosting a Bible study has led me. I work at KISS. It's a commercial radio station. Jesus' name doesn't get many shout outs, I have to say, every other weekend. But particularly over Easter coming, I'm thinking, okay, it's an anniversary for this Bible group. And Easter is all about Christ, right? We wouldn't even have Easter if we were not celebrating the death and then the resurrection. And so I said to my boss, can't we do an Easter series on big radio, you know? If a man really did die and rise again, I think that's worthy of talking about over a Sunday evening or whenever the schedule permits. And so they came back to me and said, you know what, Swaz, we're going to take up your idea. We're going to start thinking about how we can include young people and faith and what that looks like against the backdrop of a pandemic, against the backdrop of COVID, where loads of people have lost loved ones this year. I'm sure lots of people are asking questions about faith. And so where that has become a really public conversation, or soon to become a public conversation, God has really like honed in some of the conversational skills through this Bible study and through walking with a friend one-on-one. Sometimes not knowing what to say, sometimes just saying a prayer because there aren't many words to comfort, but trusting that, okay, regardless of what comes, whatever life throws at us, we can stand on the truth that Jesus really did rise again. And so when he says, I'm the resurrection and the life, this takes on a whole new meaning. Because I think for the Bible study, we have found that Monday nights are they're the best nights of the week. And not because of the questions or the study or anything like that, because if Jesus says he's life, that means he's life now, right? He's alive today and he's alive in me. So rather than just cruising through life and living as though I don't need to pretend, I can actually come together with a group of friends and be honest about the struggles, whatever I may be facing, and leave room to say, yeah, I completely hear you and this is what I'm going through as well. So that's a little bit of a testimony, and I just wanted to leave with 3 practical ways. I've said some of them, but one, maybe you take the plunge and invite a few friends and start up your own study, see where that goes. Number 2, get something in the diary. I think what I found with me and my friend is we committed to 9 a.m. In lockdown, waking up, but 9 a.m, get it in the diary, and it made sure we were accountable. It was like, are you awake? Okay, we're good to go, let's go. And number 3, in terms of the public, the work environment, I've had so many opportunities to share the gospel, and one of the greatest ways I've found is just to spend a little bit of money on a birthday gift. There's been a couple colleagues this year who have gone through some really rocky seasons, and a birthday card online or a birthday gift has opened conversations that I never expected to have in the world of radio and media. And so those would be my 3 practical ways when walking side by side, whether that's one person or a group of people, especially when life gets really tough. And you'll find that God blesses you as much as he's using you to bless someone else as well. So I hope that's encouraging. My name is Swazi. Would love to take in any questions as well. That's it from me. Thanks.
Great, Swazi, thanks very much. I feel more cool for being on a program with you. My wife explained what KISS Radio was. But I think it's encouraging to us that somebody like yourself, who speaks on such a wide scale, still does get nerves about sharing and invite somebody to a Bible study. But yeah, that's so cool, and God's timing. So thank you for sharing that. We'll be excited to hear about the Easter series.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Cheers. And just a reminder, like Swazi said, if you do have any questions throughout, do type them in Facebook and YouTube. Direct them to Swazi if you like, or just generally. Now we're going to introduce a lady called Anne Cochran. So here she is, and I'm going to let Anne take it away. Thanks, Anne. Oh, I think you are just on mute, actually, Anne.
Hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Anne. I live in Horsham in West Sussex, married with 3 adult children and 6 lovely grandchildren. I last week retired as a midwife in a profession I absolutely love for 40 years. So I'm just in that transition. I became a Christian as a teenager, and I'm still learning so much as a Christian, but I'm very thankful for God's wonderful love to me. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about life walking alongside others at difficult times. Life isn't a fairy tale, is it? We have many good things, but we all struggle with challenges in this imperfect world, don't we? How can we walk side by side with others offering gospel hope? Jesus is our wonderful example. Although he was the Lord of heaven, he came down to this imperfect world and was a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering himself. So what can we learn from Jesus as he interacted with others? Jesus loved people, and they felt that love. In the Gospels, we see his kindness, compassion, tears of grief, and practical care. Jesus gave himself for others at great personal cost. We need to read the Gospels regularly to keep this fresh in our minds. About 5 years ago, I was the midwifery mentor to a lovely young Pakistani girl. But it soon became clear that she was struggling emotionally. She was wearing a wig because she was self-harming, pulling out her own hair. I showed her love and encouraged her to seek medical help. Her parents were strict Muslims. Her father even got up at 3 a.m. every night to pray. And while she felt loved as a child, she had become disillusioned with Islam. And as she didn't conform, she felt rejected by her parents. I listened to her and frequently talked to her about Jesus. After 3 years, she graduated and moved away to work. And my only contact with her was seeing occasional posts on Facebook. Then last December, I had a text that made me dance around my kitchen with joy. It said, "I've started some new training, but best of all, I've become a Christian." The next day, we had a memorable phone call, and it was clear that she had been wonderfully saved. Loving her, listening to her, advising her to get appropriate help, and principally pointing her to Jesus, God used that to save her. You may know someone in your family, at university, in your work, or in your friendship group who's struggling with life. How can you help them? Firstly, be there for them, a presence. Sometimes in deep grief, there are no words to say. Sitting on their settee, holding their hand, and even quietly weeping with them can be a huge comfort. I've cried with couples who've had a stillborn baby. And when we do speak, our words must be appropriate. Don't say, "I know how you feel," or "I'm sure it'll be okay." Hollow words are unhelpful at best and can be really hurtful. But acknowledge their pain. It's very real. Let them talk about it over and over again if they want to. Be patient, be loving, be compassionate. Offer careful advice if appropriate and you feel competent to do so. Don't judge them. While their suffering may be the result of their own foolishness, the gospel offers forgiveness and a fresh start. Communicate that atmosphere of hope. And think about their practical needs. Flowers are lovely, but could you cook them a meal, get their shopping, take their kids for a few hours, or clean their house? Jesus raised Jairus' daughter from the dead, then said, "Give her something to eat." Do they need specialist help? There are so many resources available, and we can point them in the right direction, or even with their consent, send the email or help them to make the phone call. The dark cloud of despair can paralyze, so they can't find the motivation to take the first step. We can be alongside them. But we mustn't think we have to offload the whole gospel onto them straight away. Show them the love of Jesus. I saw a pregnant lady in clinic last week from Eastern Europe. Her boyfriend had kicked her out, so she had no home, no family nearby, and due to COVID was furloughed, so had little income. She cried. What was it appropriate to do? I stopped. I asked questions and listened. I gave her tissues and the space to lament. Then I suggested practical ways she could access help. I probably won't have the chance to tell her about Jesus, but I showed her his love and care. by showing Christ's love in action, where we are building a platform that God may use where we can tell them about his love. Their curiosity will be aroused. Why are you doing this for me? Then we can tell them that we are loved by God and his love shines through us, that Jesus feels their pain and of his compassionate care for all who trust him. We can give them gospel hope. That's why it's so important for us to have the gospel clear in our minds so we can explain it when the opportunity arises. Can you do that? I have a number of gospels, a number of gospels and tracts handy in your work bag or in your car. This one on hope for the bereaved is really helpful. Don't know if you can see it. And it gives them something to read after we have gone. There are many great resources to help us too. CCEF and IBCD provide free biblical counselling talks on a range of topics. I often listen to a podcast while I'm driving or when I'm doing housework and read Proverbs. We can store up treasure in our minds. Acute situations need immediate help, but chronic ones are often a long, hard haul. Be there. Drip in the comfort and reassurance. Be that reliable friend when others have lost interest. We can't be their saviour and must be careful not to overcommit. Be realistic and try to share the burden. Could you organise a meal rota for the family? Others are often willing to help if someone takes the initiative. Sensitively speak the name of the one they may have lost. Acknowledge the pain of infertility every month, the ache of the broken relationship, the oppression of a bully at work, or the gnawing anxiety that poverty can bring. Note the date when tragedy struck, and next year send a card. I'm thinking of you. Human kindness at such times speaks volumes and creates opportunities to talk about Jesus. I found that with a neighbour recently when her husband died of brain cancer in his 50s. She has come with me to evangelistic events, and I've been able to clearly tell her about Jesus. Seed sown. But we must also not be gullible. Some people sadly take advantage of our kindness and demand unreasonable things. We can say no and gently step back if we perceive that's happening. Finally, do you often feel inadequate? I do. What a blessing to be able to send arrow prayers to God. Please help me. And graciously he does. As we dependently live and speak for Jesus, he delights to use us. Psalm 34:18 says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and sees those who are crushed in spirit. Jesus, who walked this earth, is now in heaven with the same heart of love and compassion for people. Let that encourage us in our own struggles, but also give us strength to be his hands and feet in this imperfect world as we walk alongside others in difficult times. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne, for just bringing so many kind words and wise words. I loved particularly, I was writing my notes down as I was trying to listen. I just loved how you said that actually Jesus offers the fresh start to people, that we can come alongside people and we don't need to be the judge of them, that actually Jesus offers that goodness to them. So thank you. I could just tell by just seeing you on a screen how caring you are of people. So thank you so much, Anne.
Pleasure.
Wonderful. I'm now going to invite up Sarah, who is our next speaker. The wonderful Sarah. We sometimes work together, not very often. We've crossed paths sometimes. But yeah, Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would. I mean, Claire, I think our paths might cross more, if it wasn't for a little thing of a pandemic. But yeah, no. My name is Sarah. I live in Wiltshire, a town just outside Bath. And I work for a charity called Friends International, and we're all about befriending and sharing the gospel with international students that study here in the UK.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so thankful for Friends International. They make my job glorious and easy and kind. So take it away, Sarah. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Claire. I have to admit that when I said yes to this and then started thinking about it, there was definitely why did I agree to do this? I shouldn't have done it. So I chatted it through with a friend who just encouraged me to think through a few of the people that I've had the privilege of walking with over recent years. So let me introduce you to a few. Firstly, there's Lily, a single mum at 20, 2 children with 2 dads, telling me she's pregnant again to another man, desperately lonely and looking for love. Jenny, in her 50s, 1 child estranged from her, adulterous first husband, second husband has just died suddenly. Alone and scared. Felicity, 16, raised in a Christian home, desperate for love and seeking it in sex and basically any male attention. Becky, in her 30s, single, in a new city, one really good friendship, but no other real friends or community locally. Now, these are 4 really different situations, and I had really different relationships with each of them. But they all were messy, full of pain. And the interesting thing I thought about all of them was that on the surface, they kind of looked okay. They all managed to function in normal life, but all in pain. Now, what I've outlined is just a moment in each of their lives. Now, some of these situations are current and others are historic and have moved on incredibly. And it's a joy to say I've actually prayed with 2 of them to accept Jesus into their lives. But thinking about those crisis moments, those moments with each of them, what did they all have in common? What have I learnt about walking with others through each of them? There's 4 things. Firstly, be real. Don't hide my mess. I am not sorted. I struggle. For example, talking about finding Valentine's Day hard with Becky opened up a great discussion about whether or not marriage is even a good thing. And talking to Lily about managing all the bills and the responsibility of running a house on my own helped her to see that the fact that she found those things hard wasn't actually a result of having lots of children. It's the reality of living alone. It meant that being a single mum wasn't actually the cause of that stress. Second thing is be present. Be there. Go for daily walks. Take Felicity to the local drive-through and sit in the car whilst eating it and listen to hours and hours of inane conversation about teenage friends. Be there when the world falls to pieces when her parents find out she's having sex. Be the trusted older adult in her life. Offer to have Lily's kids so she can go to a home group or go out with a friend. Be there. Be present. Be practical. Help where you can. Does Jenny need someone to spend the anniversary of her husband's death with? Offer to go. And when she says no, turn up with flowers and a meal that you can either have with her or leave her with. Either way, she'll know that she's loved. The 4th one is simply be. Just be. Be with them, love them. The relationships that you will have with the people that the Lord has put around you will be really different to these relationships. But I think these 4 principles, and please think they're definitely principles and not rules, are really helpful in just thinking about these. Each of them played out completely different in each situation. But I could definitely say that with each of them and others that I've had the privilege of walking with, that I have been able to be real, be present, be practical, and to just be. All of us need to be present. We all need people present with us, don't we? And I'm really thankful that Jesus didn't deal with us at arm's length. He came to us, he came to our mess, he got involved. And so we can be like him and get messy. We can join in people's mess. Be Jesus to those who need it way more than they know. Well, how do we know this is what Jesus is like? Let me read you a verse from Matthew chapter 1. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. Maybe that's a verse that we forget other than at Christmas, but it's true all year round, isn't it? God is with us. He is with us now. He came to us where we were. He came to us in our mess. And in essence, we do the same. We show sacrificial love. Now, we're not God. We can't sort everything out. But we do know that we have the Spirit with us. So we don't need all the answers, or any answers even. We can trust that the Lord will use our actions, and he will use the way in which we love people, the way in which we speak to people, the things that we faltering try and say about him for his glory. Because all of these people that are hurting, it always amazes me how easy I forget this. Jesus loves them more than I do. So he will use us as his fallen and broken people to love those who are hurting around us. Thanks.
Sarah, thanks for sharing those things. That's a challenge to me, and I think sometimes the temptation that I face can be to treat people as projects to try and get them to church. But I think you really exemplified even People are people. So yeah, may God bless you and continue to use you and help these ladies. Thanks, Sarah. And again, if you have any questions for Sarah, or maybe just general questions that you'd like to pitch to the panel, do type them in. We'll be picking them up and we'll address them just after our last speaker, who is Connie Keep. So Connie, are you with us?
Hi.
Hey, lovely.
Yeah.
Connie, I'll hand over to you. Would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Great, sure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for coming to our event. Yeah, I'm going to start by letting you in on a bit of a secret. So my job is I work for a Christian charity that's all about helping students share the gospel with their friends. That bit's not really a secret. That is public knowledge. But every morning when I wake up with this like angry voice in my head. You're a burden. You're rubbish. Why do you think you could do anything? That temptation, that thing that you're struggling with right now, well, that discounts you. Like if people could see your life, they wouldn't want to listen. It's like this angry voice. Maybe some of you can empathize, you know what that's like. Some of us are so kind of all over the place. We don't really know whether we're coming or going, the struggles of the pandemic, the battles of life, things that have maybe happened in the past, and we just feel a bit at sea. Or maybe you wouldn't put yourself in either of those categories, but just as the normal challenges of everyday life. And if you can empathize or associate with any of those things, I really, really want to just say to you that quite counterintuitively, I think actually it's often in our weakness, in our struggle, as we wrestle with the different complexities that life throws our way, actually often that is where we can be most helpful in coming alongside and walking alongside friends, whether they follow Jesus or whether they don't. And I want to show you this from someone who we hear about in scripture. So if you think about the Apostle Paul, okay, so Paul is the person that God has chosen to take his message, his good news, to literally the ends of the earth. He's like a bigwig, if you will, right? And Paul's talking about his life and his suffering and his struggles. And he talks about how he has this thorn in his flesh. He's got this difficult thing, which in some way is hindering his work and his life, his ministry. And it feels to him like, this is holding me back. And he cries out to Jesus. He says, if you take this thing away from me, please take it away. Like, I'm going to be more useful to you. I don't know if you've ever prayed that about something in your own life. I know that I have. And it's amazing what Jesus says back to him. Okay, this is really crucial. Listen to what he says. He says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. My power is made perfect in weakness. And it sounds wrong to us, doesn't it? Like often I think, well, I don't know about you, but I feel like I need to have it all together. Then I can be useful to Jesus, or I don't want to be a burden, or if I show a bit of vulnerability, or I show that I don't really know the answer to these questions, like maybe people won't want to follow Jesus because I don't have the answers, and it's a bit scary. We don't really want to be a burden to people, but listen to what Paul says, or more importantly, what Jesus says to Paul. My grace, Jesus's grace, is sufficient for you, Paul, Connie, wonderful people who have come to this event. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power, Jesus's power, is made perfect, is displayed, is shown, is most gloriously revealed in weakness. I think sometimes we just think that we have to be perfect, but God's power isn't shown in my efforts to be perfect. Jesus did that. He did that on the cross. We don't need to do that. And I think it's as we're open about our vulnerability, about the fact that we're not perfect, that then the glory of Jesus can shine through. It's clear that it's God's glory because it can't be ours. I think it can be quite difficult for us, can't it? I don't know about you, but I look around at my friends and I think everyone sort of has it together and it all looks very good and tidy on the outside. But I think when we scratch below the surface a little bit, we see that everybody's got their thing or their difficulty or the thing that's happened to them. But it just can be quite hard to sort of get there. So I guess I want to commend to us showing a little bit of appropriate vulnerability. Have you ever had that experience where you're having quite a rough time and you're meeting up with a friend or whoever it is, and you feel kind of, it's not about me, I don't want to make it about me, I need to, you know, focus on them or whatever, but they're sharing and they're having a bit of a difficult time. And it is actually quite hard for you, you're really struggling to hold it together, but as you hear them talk about what's going on in their life, you lean in a little bit and you're like, oh, like they're sharing, maybe I could share a bit of my thing, like maybe they wouldn't think I'm stupid or whatever. And they share a bit more and you kind of lean in a bit more and you share just like a little bit, and it's met with such a good reaction, and you share, and eventually a bond is formed, and there's sort of that feeling of relief which just sort of flows through you, like, oh, I've been understood and I can share and they can share with me. And you want to know a bit about what's helped them and how they've kept going in that difficulty. And I think it's a biblical idea. In one of Paul's letters, he says, I'll read you what he says. He's talking about his Father God, and he says, our Father comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort that we ourselves receive from God. He's saying that God has comforted us, his people, primarily with forgiveness of sin. Like, primarily we've been forgiven, we can be part of God's family, but more than that, with his love and his acceptance and his assurance, being part of his family. Like, there's so much comfort that we receive from the Lord, isn't there? And he's given that to us so that we can then comfort others. I don't know about your life experiences, but I had an experience a number of years ago. It was a really difficult relationship breakdown, a marriage breakdown, actually. It was a really big thing. And in the community that I was in, you don't end marriages. That it was a really hard and what felt like shameful thing. And there were so many wonderful people around me at the time. I knew such comfort, but the people who really, really comforted me, who really were able to connect with me and draw near to me, were those who had suffered, who'd experienced suffering, who'd wrestled with some of the complexities of these questions, and who had the ability to then comfort me in a unique way with the comfort that God had shown them. I don't know, that might be your experience too. I guess, yeah, the big thing I really just want to say is that counterintuitively, often it's in our weakness, in our complexity, in our wrestling and our struggle, as we wrestle with those things that we don't really understand. Often that's where we have the opportunity to shine the light of Christ, to show people the glory of God. So when I get that angry voice, when you get that angry voice, whether you don't know whether you're coming or going, and you think, oh, I need to sort my life out before I can be useful to Jesus, I just don't think that's true. It's in the mess, it's in the complexity. That time that I just mentioned, that was also the time that was the most amazing for starting conversations, and still to this day, talking about that is the thing that leads to the most conversations about real life with my friends and with the people around me.
Thanks so much, Connie, for sharing so honestly. I'm sure there's many people watching that really appreciate that. And yeah, I think I agree with you. I'm so thankful for those people that have shared out of a place of weakness. Actually, it comes with a greater understanding. And it's a great challenge to us, isn't it, to be weak? But we know that God makes us strong. So thank you so much for that.
All right, thanks for having me.
We're going to move into our time of Q&A. So please do add your questions and your comments. Whatever you feel, we're going to invite all of our speakers up with us. I can see them appearing. So yes, please do add your questions. We've had a few in, so thank you so much for those. Firstly, we have one for you, Swazi, but I'm sure some others can chip in. The question says this: Swazi, thank you for your encouragement. Are you using particular resources for your studies with friends?
Yes, and I was doing that thing that we do on Zoom where we try to look at the camera but try not to look at YouTube as well. I've got a few links. I'm a huge lover of the Village Church online. Matt Chandler's the pastor over there, and he's done a series through Luke, and he actually did a chapter by chapter. I was like, Brother Luke, thank you. I mean, Brother Matt, thank you for giving me the gems and I could just go away and make my questions. So it's a little bit of a freestyle, like I'll gauge the conversation, but using the sermons online to unpack each chapter and to share that in the WhatsApp chat. And then I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Chosen series. This came out last year, Easter time. It is brilliant. It's a real good visualization of who followed the Lord, why did they follow him, all of those things. And so that I think that's about 8 episodes, and we walked through that as well. So I'll drop that in the chat, and I'm sure you guys can share with the viewers as well. So yeah, some really great resources out there.
Oh, thanks so much. Always needing resources. People still add your questions to the chat. I've actually got a question myself. I feel a bit cheeky adding one in, but I thought I might as well. Sarah, I might start with you, but others feel free to chip in. I was just wondering how you go about walking alongside people like long term. Sometimes you can just be side by side with people for years, and I don't know, for me sometimes that feels like, I don't know if I can manage that. I just was wondering about your experience of that.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Claire. I think the key thing for me is that the people I've mentioned, and I just want to say I definitely changed hopefully enough details that if you think it's you, it isn't you. The people I've talked about, they're people who are my friends. They are people who I love. So like Matt said, it's not that they're a project. It's not that my only aim in hanging out with them is to talk about Jesus. My aim in hanging out with them is to be their friend. I talked about Becky and how we'd had that great conversation about marriage, and it was brilliant. Talked on so many gospel things, so indirectly. But you know what? It was her who delivered to me a big bag of Valentine's presents on Sunday. I didn't do anything. I didn't even think about it. So it's a friendship. It's just an ongoing. We love one another. We just continue to keep on being friends. And I think that's why it doesn't get to the point that I'm really frustrated with it. I think you're just being friends with people. You're hanging out with them because they're your friends and that you love them. And I think keeping that in mind is what's really helpful. As well, I think for me, I get points where I just get really sad, where I'm like, they just need Jesus. Jesus is the answer to this, what they're going through right now. But then I'm reminded that I actually can't open blind eyes. Only Jesus can. So pray for them. So often I'm keen to hang out with them and I'm slower to pray. So I think be with them and pray.
Can I just add? Sorry, Cameron.
Yes, please do. Yes, go ahead.
Just 2 quick things. I think when we're giving and giving and giving, we need to have good friends around us to support us as well, and not to be afraid to ask for help. And the other thing is, if we keep close to Jesus ourselves, that's where our real source of strength comes from. So watch your own walk with the Lord and quiet times, protect those, because that's where your source of strength will really come from.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. You also mentioned an organisation, CCEF, and somebody else who did resources.
Yes. CCEF stands for Christian Counselling Education Foundation. If you just Google it, it will come up, and there are loads of resources there. And the IBCD is the Institute for Biblical Counselling and Discipleship. They're great resources.
And so please do continue to pop your questions on Facebook or YouTube. We'd love to pitch them to our panelists. So we've got a question here from Rachel. Thanks, Rachel. Rachel asks, and I guess this is for anybody who would just like to chip in first, how do we walk well with people when it is hard and costly? If anybody's got any particular thoughts on that one.
I think we might all just be waiting for someone else to speak. I'll say something really briefly and then someone else can speak. I think when it's hard and costly, I think what Anne just said there was really helpful. You've got to have your own support network. Loving people is costly, it is sacrificial. But I really appreciated what Anne said in her talk about how we do actually have to have boundaries. Like, it's okay to say no to things. And I think it's right and wise that if you shouldn't be the only person that is directly involved in someone's situation. So in these situations, yes, the ones I talked about very much like me and them. but there were other people around me, either their family and friends, church family. There are other people around. It isn't just me, because we do this as a community. So I think if you're finding that someone's asking you to keep a lot of secrets and a lot of pressure on you, then yeah, that's wise to step back. But otherwise, when it's hard and costly, which was the real question, wasn't it? I think go make sure that we're being refilled. Go back to Jesus. You know, go back to him day after day. He's the one who will give us all that we need.
Can I chime in on this? I think sometimes when there's someone around us who's really distressed, and maybe they're saying quite distressing things, we can feel like we need to be there, we need to solve it, we need to fix the problem. But actually, if they're in such a place of distress, it's probably going to be quite a long-term road and something that you know, keeps going for a long time. And I think I would just echo what other people have said. There needs to be a team and things. But just as someone who's been in that kind of situation, I've struggled with self-harm and with eating disorders and things like that, which are a long road to get healing from, and they can be lifelong battles for people. I think recognizing that we can't do everything helps. I mean, there are acute times. If someone's a danger to themselves or to other people, go to A&E, sit with them in the hospital, make sure they get the help that they need. But I think, I don't know if this is fair to say, sometimes we can almost get in the way of Jesus, actually. Like, we want to be there and we want to show love, but I think, for example, in my life, there have been times where it's been the middle of the night and I've been really distressed and I haven't been able to phone a friend because it's 2 a.m. And actually, sometimes it's been in those times where I haven't been able to go to my natural human support people. It's just pushed me to cry out to the Lord in complete desperation and not knowing whether I'm coming or going. But it's sometimes in those moments where our faith is sort of the rubber hits the road. Like, we have to turn to him. I don't mean that to sound trite and easy, but like, we can't fix people's problems. We need to come alongside, love. If it's acute, make sure that you get them to a place of safety. But actually, sometimes allowing people to wrestle and just keep saying, I'm here. I don't know. Others have something to add. But
I'd say, oh, sorry.
No, carry on, Sarah.
I'd say just what Connie just said. I have a group of friends who, whenever I share struggles with them, their first reaction basically is to say, I'm for you. I'm for you. And it's so tempting to not believe it. But actually physically saying that to someone can feel weird. But actually, when it's backed up by actions, is the most loving thing that can happen. So I think I interrupted you, Anne.
Yeah, so true. So helpful. Thank you so much, ladies. We have a question here from Naomi Dawson, and it says, how do you support people without being simplistic and offering glib answers? Anne, I was wondering if you would be up for answering that one first.
Yes, good question. I think sometimes there are no words, are there? Sometimes it's just, as we've said, the presence of being there with them and offering that human touch, that human support, and that can just be so powerful. Simple words are sometimes very hollow and can be even hurtful. It just shows we don't really understand if we are too trite. It's okay to say, I don't understand how you feel, I haven't been there, and just acknowledging that, but I want to help you, I'm here for you, let me know how I can help you, asking them how you can help them, and just remembering the gospel. Jesus offers us hope. It depends when they're a Christian or not a Christian, but the same applies. Jesus offers all of us hope if we turn to him. So don't expect to give all the answers straight away. Sometimes it's just dripping in a little bit at a time, and a patience game, but being there for them, loving them, knowing that they're loved, that they can rely on you. I think that is stronger than any words.
I was just going to jump in on this one as well and agree with Anne, and also say in the times that I've not known what to say with friends, I've just pulled from my favorite verses, you know. Sometimes I'm like, well, the Bible says this, so I've got to stand on this scripture because I don't have any words for this. And what I found is my friend who has said, where I thought, oh, I'm that cheesy Christian and I've come up with John 3:16 again, come on, Swaz, get your vocab better. That friend has been like, I needed to hear that truth. I really needed to hear you proclaim that because I didn't have the strength to say that for myself. And so what I would say to so many of us who feel like, oh, am I going to come with another psalm? Yes, you are. Yes, you are going to come with another psalm. Or whatever verse it is to encourage, because actually the word of God is so powerful and it really is the rock beneath our feet. So when the carpet feels like it's been pulled, praise God that we've got something to stand on, you know. So don't feel like you're that cheesy person who's going to come again. Come with the truth, and the Lord does the rest of it, doesn't he? So in those moments, definitely draw for your favorite scriptures. They always help.
I think as well with friends who aren't Christians, or maybe wouldn't be familiar with Jesus, people have an idea, don't they, of who Jesus is. I've found it quite helpful sometimes to just air some of the questions, like, oh, I see these things happening around me in the world and I really don't understand. I'll sometimes say to people, I look at all the stuff going on around me and it makes me so angry, and I just think, how on earth can there be a God who made this? It says that he's good and who loves us, but he also says in his word that he's revealed in the person of Jesus. So if I look at Jesus, I get to see what God is like. And actually, when I look at Jesus, all my questions sort of slightly melt away because he's just so utterly good. Like, have you ever actually looked at him? Another thing is, it's quite fun. Not fun, sorry. Pop out like Psalm 88. Have a read of Psalm 88 after this, and like, it's distress, you know, the psalmist is distressed and there aren't answers for his questions. And often when I've got questions, I find words in scripture that don't give me the answers to my questions, but they do allow me to ask the questions, and that's enough. And I think for friends who are Christians or not, like, even just showing people that these things are there, you're allowed to say, how long, Lord? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you bringing this on me? You know, you've allowed Satan to send this thing. Like, what's going on there? And then that allows other people, and they might be like, oh, the Bible says that. I'm going to need to check that out. I found that helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Connie. Connie, we do have another question for you as well. This comes from Caitlin McPherson. She thanks you for sharing and wants to ask, how do you carefully negotiate where and when to share your struggles to show someone they're not alone in theirs without oversharing?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And if I'd had more time, I wanted to talk about this. I guess there's a few things I'd say. So first of all, pray and ask the Lord to give you wisdom. We have the Spirit of the living God in us, and he wants to use us in all the different interactions we have, even as we like bump into someone on the street, or don't bump in, keep your social distance as you're chatting with people on the street. And just ask the Lord, like, you know, what can I share with this person? But there's a wisdom, there's like what you can cope with, what they can cope with. I think sharing a little, what am I trying to say? You can share something of the emotions and the feelings without actually sharing the detail. So I think you can talk in a way that shows that you understand something and you understand the emotions and the experience without having to sort of share or burden. So if I was chatting to someone and they didn't know my story at all, and they were telling me that they were having quite distressing thoughts, I might say something that would show them that they're safe and that I understand, but I probably wouldn't share even everything that I've shared on this call if I was sitting one-on-one with someone to start with. So if someone's having a difficult time, in the past I've found I get some really distressing feelings and I just don't really know what to do with it. Do you find that? Like, is that something you connect with? And sort of slowly, as the relationship's built over time, you can share more. And it's something you kind of learn as you go. I think it's a journey I'd still say that I'm on, but I think we learn. And sense checking with friends, you know, was that an overshare? Should do that a bit differently, you know, debrief with friends. if you've got someone who's a bit further on than you, chatting to them about it. I don't know if that's helpful. Do come back if you want to. Others maybe can chip in. And I don't know if you have some wisdom on that.
I think it's very helpful to share, showing our vulnerability. Certainly that can be a real bridge into people opening up further and feeling more comfortable to share with us. But sometimes by sharing our own problems, we can almost trivialize theirs. So it is a fine line, isn't it? You know, my trouble's bigger than your trouble. You know, it's showing empathy through what we've learned and pulling out the lessons we've learned and trying to encourage them along that journey in a way, in a pace that they can cope with in a very sensitive way. Yeah. And not being, another little thing comes to mind, not being afraid to say, can I pray with you? People even that I know that would say they're atheists, you get them in trouble. And if you feel it's appropriate, you say, would you like me to pray for you, or would you like me to pray with you? And often they'll say yes. And I did that with one girl, and she said, well, what do I do? And so I said, well, I'm going to close my eyes and talk to my Father in heaven. And so I had a little peek when I was praying, and she was sitting there with her hands together and her eyes closed. And at the end, she said, Amen. So, you know, we never know what that's showing how our faith works in our lives is a powerful witness.
One question I was once told to ask yourself in the moment when you suddenly, like, you're in a situation that you haven't had a chance to prepare for is, why am I sharing this? Am I sharing this for their good? Because I think actually sometimes it can be for us, if someone's in there, you know, just a big situation's happened and they're processing it, we can move like, oh, it's someone who gets it. I can talk about my stuff. But if we're a lot further down, then we're sharing it for our benefit and not for theirs. So I think actually, is sharing this going to be helpful for them? And I think what Connie said about sharing a very little, sometimes people really want to know details of what other people have gone through so they know that there can be hope the other side. Other times their pain is so acute, they don't care, and what they will hear is that you're not listening. So I think, whose benefit are you sharing it for?
That's a really helpful question.
I was just going to jump in and chip in and say, my dad went into hospital beginning of the year, and I just freaked out. I didn't know what to do. So often you're looked at as the strong one who's leading the prayer group, and then someone says to you, can we lead a prayer group? I'm like, whoa, this feels weird. And I just invited my family, who are not Christians. Very not Christians, and they came. And I was like, wow, they came and they sat on the call, and they would have heard people, you know, share scriptures, or they would have heard me say, I'm really upset. Things that I just wouldn't naturally share with those who I live with and when I'm home with. So yeah, if anyone's listening, like, just put the call out and say, I'm doing this. Do you want to come? If they come, they come. If they don't, they don't. But sometimes you're quite surprised if they say yes and then they come. And let other people do the witnessing. Sometimes not every day, man. Like, sometimes I just need to be prayed for. Other people will fill in the gap at that point. And I was really glad that, yeah, brothers and sisters did that. So yeah, sharing at your most weakness point as well is also good.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for all of those answers. They were so helpful and so poignant. We've kind of had this question before, but I wonder if we can hone in on it a little bit more, from Grace Church Dundee, which I think is Susie. And it's this question of, how do you avoid burnout whilst walking with others? And I wonder if you could start for us, considering your job background. Anything to say in that situation? Yeah.
Stat answer at the beginning of everything. Pray. Ask for God's help. But also share the burden. Don't expect to carry the burden alone. It's not sustainable. So avoid burnout by being realistic in your expectations. And as we've said, not be afraid to say no if you feel the expectations are getting beyond your capability. You've got to balance your own responsibilities if you've got your own family and things like that as well. So being realistic, I think, and being honest with people so that you're not making a front and saying, yes, I can do this. Am I echoing? But then, yes, I'll stop then.
Thank you. Sarah, would you mind offering, if you've got anything else to say to this question?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. burnout is such a thing, isn't it? And I think at the moment we're all feeling like closer to the edge of it than maybe before. Like there's been so much thrown at us in the last year. It's so easy to feel that we just can't cope with anything else. I think maybe it's not quite burnout. One thing I know I've been really challenged with in the past is I can quite happily sit on my sofa and just be like, I'm too tired, I can't go out tonight. I don't want to do this. I don't want to phone that person. I don't want to do it. And sometimes it's right not to. Rest is good and right, and I'm not saying we should never rest. But sometimes, if I'm honest, it's my own laziness that means that I don't want to do it. So I claim burnout when I'm actually feeling a little bit lazy. So I think that's just something else to be aware of. Like when we say burnout, do we mean it? Burnout is real, but I think sometimes it's a great excuse for when I just really want to watch the really trashy program that I'm watching at the moment. I think the other thing is avoiding burnout. Then, have other people that know what's going on in your life. You cannot be walking with other people if no one's walking with you. So whether that's friends who are similar age and stage as you, whether that's people who are older who are mentoring you, whether that's people who are younger than you that you're mentoring. I mentor a couple of teenage girls at church, and I threw out a couple of questions to them the other week. I was like, I don't know what to do in this situation. What do you think? And they were really helpful. They came at it in such a different way. So I think it's okay, be around people, be part of the community yourself, because otherwise you will burn out. And especially if you forget that you're not Jesus. Like we cannot sort things. We have to leave him to work.
Yeah, just to expand on that a little bit, what Sarah's just said. I think sometimes we can feel like the victim of other people's needs, and like just because someone over here has a need, I have to meet it. But actually, like I can't. Burnout, I wonder whether where I've experienced that in the past, often it's more a problem with me thinking that I could be Superwoman or God and rush around meeting everybody's needs. It's not the other person's fault. They're entitled to ask me for some help, and I'm entitled to say no, or to say, I can't do that today, but actually, how about we get help here? Or I think we can feel like just because someone's asked, we sort of have to respond. The other thing I was going to say, just on coming alongside people, it may be that we can't meet that particular need that the person has, but we can help them to find the need. So for example, it may be that someone isn't safe in their house or something, or they need to be alongside someone else, and it might be that I, as a single woman, or it might for whatever reason not be appropriate for them to say come and stay with me, but it might be that there's a family in the church who actually they could quite easily, or it would be a sacrifice, but they could bring a person into their sort of family life, and that would be a more kind of safe and helpful way to care for that person. So I guess seeing it as a church family thing that we're doing together, rather than just kind of me on my own. And that's actually amazing. Like people who are looking on at that. If a Christian family takes someone into their home and says, just come and live with us, people around are watching and they're like, whoa, why did you do that? Like, why did that family take you in? Why did that happen? And it's that thing is, as they see you love each other, the Bible says, as we love each other as God's people, that shows the watching world who Jesus is. Like, it's actually part of our witness and our chance to show the light of the gospel.
Yeah, Connie, thanks. That was really good and a challenge. We've had a question from Lynn Graham. She asks, any advice on how we look after us in the midst of looking after others, especially fighting the feeling of weakness and simply not being enough? Swazi, any thoughts on that one?
Yes, I need to give shouts out to my local park that sees me every day at 2:30. That's my run and rave session. So I just go to the park and unleash whatever it is that's going on in my mind. And I can tell you, it's been a whole year. I've not seen what that park looks like all year round. I would really recommend just going and shutting down your laptop, taking off emails, because the thing is, when you're walking with people, you've got a life at the same time. You're doing your work stuff, or you're doing whatever life throws at you. And so looking after me this year has really been time out, like just to go out and to clear my head and pray or do whatever. But equally as well, I walk with a friend every Tuesday at 4:30, and that's been really good, where it's been quite heavy, but going out for a walk, a socially distanced walk, of course, but taking ourselselves out of our normal environments, just go and catch up. And just to the question before, like, we give thanks for drive-throughs, just like what Sarah said, or we give thanks for, I don't know, Kew Gardens. Last year, me and my friend who I was walking with, she sadly lost her dad. We just went to Kew Gardens and said, right, this is our treat, this is our Christmas treat, and putting things like that in the diary really helped us not burn out and give us something new to do and to talk about. It didn't mean that we came back to the same conversation. So definitely putting things in the diary to look forward to is a great way of looking after yourself, as well as the relationships of those you're walking beside as well.
Thanks.
Can I just, you go, sorry, you go.
I'm sorry. We could do like a little hand waving system, couldn't we? I'd say, in a way, if you're feeling the weakness and you're feeling that you're not enough, you are in the best possible place to help them, because we're all weak and we're not enough. So just, let's rejoice in that we're not called to be super saviors. We're not called to run around and save everybody and sort out all their problems. The other thing I want to say is, I suspect, like, when I feel like that, when I feel weak or I feel I'm not enough, I'm often thinking, if only this person had this amazing person that I know, they'd be able to help them way better than I can. But the Lord has put you in that person's life. He hasn't put this other person. So don't compare yourself to somebody else. The Lord knows what that person needs, and he said that you're the person, and that's okay. So feel your weakness, rejoice that Jesus is glorified in weakness. And you're saying you're not enough. Well, I think you are. Even if you feel that you're not, you are enough. Sorry, Connie.
Yeah, well, really building on that, when we're in that place of weakness, that's when we come to the Lord. We're like, Lord, help me. I was confronted with a situation the other day, and I just thought, I have nothing. I really have nothing. I don't know where to go with this. And it pushed me to my knees. And I was more faithful in prayer about that situation in the coming weeks. To my shame, I wish that I was like that about every situation. And each day as I was coming to the Lord and saying, teach me, give me things to say, to encourage, to build up, to help others around me today. And actually, in your place of weakness, you recognize, Lord, I need your help. This is your work. Give me what you want me to say to these people, not my kind of. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we do know this, but being in close relationship with the Lord yourself and walking with him day by day through all the ups and downs, going through your days with him, I think is the most crucial, transformative thing you can do in order to help look after others. He will give you the strength in those moments. That's not to say you'll never burn out, you never have bad moments, but I think when I'm walking with the Lord day by day, even in the mess, he enables us in our weakness.
Thank you so much. Yes, Anne, go ahead.
One or two little things to this. So many things I agree with what everyone said, but we have to remember that this is not how it's always going to be. We have got gospel hope. We're in a tunnel, not a cave. There's light at the end, and that can be so encouraging when we're feeling tired and burnt out. And but the Bible says, Paul says, when we're weak, then we're strong, because then our roots go down into the Lord, and that's where we derive our greatest strength, isn't it? We're branches in the vine. That's where our source of all strength comes from. And we have got gospel hope, and God knows our weaknesses. He's made us the way we are. He's put us in the circumstances we are. We don't need him to change our circumstances. We need to mold our character to be what he wants us to be in that situation. So he's given us the gifts and the opportunities that we have to use for his glory, aware of our weakness, but dependent on his wonderful grace. I love that verse that Connie quoted. Our strength is made perfect in his, strength is made perfect in our weakness. You know the one I mean. It's just such a rich verse, the Corinthians one. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have one final question, I think, for tonight from Susan. Absolutely cool cover question to end on. How can we avoid friendsplaining, which I think is like a mansplaining? I'm not sure. It's so easy to pitch in with advice or to tell people what we think they're thinking or feeling, but we get it completely wrong. Sarah, I was wondering if you could answer that one for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving the phrase friendsplaining. I've not heard that before, but I think it's absolutely brilliant. So thank you for that, Susan. That has made my evening. I'm fairly confident that there are people who are currently listening to this who'll be like, yeah, Sarah, you've done that to me. So I'm definitely guilty of this completely. To just tell people, okay, you just do this, this, and this, and you'll be fine. It's what I did, and it worked for me. So apologies to those that have had that experience from me, because that isn't helpful, and I know that isn't helpful. But I think actually the key to it is listening to people. It is asking questions and it's listening. And I think you can say, you've said this. Now, when I was in a similar situation, I felt X, Y, Z. Do you feel like that? How is this? How are you experiencing this? Because one thing I've learned of walking through different people in grief, for example, is that the way we feel is completely different. Grief, whether it's death or loss of another kind, is so different to all of us. And so I can talk about my experiences of grief, and I can say, all right, I actually really struggled at this point because of blah. What do you think? Like, has that been the truth for you? Or tell me about what grief's been like for you, and listen to what they say. Because when I go in and friendsplain, which is totally a phrase I'm going to keep on using, it is actually because normally I'm busy, I'm tired, and I feel like I don't have time for that person. And so actually I'm not loving them well. But if I go in and say, actually tell me, or even, I really want to hear about this, but I haven't got time now. I've got something I've really got to do. Can we chat tonight? I'm putting another date in the diary to say, oh, I care about you, but I just haven't got the time to listen to you properly. I'm sure others can say as well.
I was going to say, yeah, that voice notes are a great tool for me in those moments where I'm like, I'm at work, I ain't got time at the moment. Send me your voice note, send me your podcast of 8 minutes. I will listen, I will digest, I'll call you tonight. That has definitely been my get out of jail card when I haven't had the time there and then. But yes, a great point, listening. And I find that the devotionals me and my friend were doing, the devotionals came with questions that were like fire flames. I was like, yes, this is prompting much more of the conversation and leading the conversation than it coming from me. And so I was really grateful to just be like, okay, I'm going to read this with you, and here are some scriptures, let's pray through these, or let's chat about it and how does it apply. But definitely listening and actively listening as well. And podcasting through voice notes is a win I'm carrying forward. So yeah, thanks Susan for your question, by the way.
Sarah sort of alluded to this already, but taking that moment when you want to say something to sort of breathe and think, Lord, is this helpful? Like, is this going to be useful to the other person, or is it not? And I find sometimes like I'm reading something and I think, oh, that might really encourage this person. So I kind of say, Lord, like, would it be helpful? And sometimes you can get a sense in yourself, like, oh no, I'm just doing this to make me look good, or to do this or whatever, to share my burden. But if we're not sure, just caveating it at the start with, I listened to this song and it really connected for me. I found it really helpful. It may or may not be for you, but I thought of you when I listened to it. Feel free to take it or leave it, but I offer it to you. And to say, I was reading this verse and it really spoke to me and strengthened me. I don't know if it'll connect with you right now, but giving them the opportunity to say, oh yeah, that helped, or maybe not.
Ooh, yeah.
Listen. Ask questions, find out where they are. I think that's really helpful. I think it's often, speaking for myself, it's when I'm full of pride or think I know that I can do the most damage or be the most hurtful. So it's having that humility to listen and to pray and ask God to show us what to say and how to say it, so that we can be most beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. And yeah, thank you everybody for sharing your wisdom with us on those questions. Thank you for those who submitted the questions to us this evening. And we are going to be drawing this evening to a close. So thank you, speakers, Swazi, Anne, Sarah, Connie, Beth. There's also a lot of people behind the scenes who are doing secretive things to make this evening possible. So a special thank you to Beth, who's been doing the tech for us this evening.
Yeah, brilliant. We are so thankful that you have joined us, or if you are catching up on YouTube later. And we just wanted to tell you about one of the events that we have coming up in March. So there's another event, you'll see it on the screen now. It's called Is All Loss? Jesus, Loss and Me, and that's happening on the 23rd of March. Similar to tonight, it will be live streamed via Facebook and YouTube, and that is an opportunity for you to bring your friends, maybe your friends that you are walking alongside now. Maybe this would just be a way for you guys to connect and to hear from other people what it's like to hear from the good God, our good Lord Jesus, and what he has done for us. But please do follow our socials. We are on Instagram at PFE Women. We are on Facebook at PFE Women. And please just follow. You can find out everything that's happening there. You can sign up to our kind of monthly newsletter. We would love to connect with you. We'd love you to become a part of this network with us. Thank you so much, speakers, for coming with your wisdom and wise words, and thank you to you guys for watching. We hope you have a wonderful evening, perhaps filled with pancakes, and we will see you soon.
Good night.